The year was 2847, and humanity had finally reached the stars. After centuries of hard work and sacrifice, Earth had sent its best representatives to meet the rulers of the galaxy. Admiral Daniel Cole stood at the front of the human group as their ship docked at the great station orbiting Thesara Prime. He had spent his whole life preparing for this moment. Beside him stood Dr. Rebecca Shaw, the smartest person on Earth when it came to alien languages, and Commander Nathan Price, a soldier who had fought in the wars that united humanity under one flag. The station was unlike anything they had ever seen. The walls were made of living crystal that glowed with soft colors. The colors changed based on the mood of whoever was nearby. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Daniel took a deep breath and led his team forward. The chamber of the Galactic Concord was massive. 12 platforms rose from the floor, each one holding a representative from one of the ancient species that ruled the Milky Way. These beings had controlled the galaxy for over 50,000 years. To them, humanity was nothing more than a newborn baby trying to sit at the table with giants. High Arbiter Kelthan of the Vorath spoke first. His body was made of living stone, and his voice sounded like rocks grinding together. He was the oldest and most powerful of all the representatives. When he spoke, everyone listened. "You come before us seeking membership in the Concord," Kelthan said. "Tell us why we should allow your kind to join our ranks." Daniel stepped forward. His heart was beating fast, but his voice was steady. "We offer our determination, our ability to adapt, our willingness to learn from your civilizations and grow alongside them. Humanity has come far in a short time. We believe we can contribute to the galactic community." Laughter filled the chamber. It was not kind laughter. The Shantari representative, a being made of pure energy trapped inside a crystal shell, flickered with amusement. "Determination," it said. "The insects that infest dead planets are also determined. Should we grant them membership too?" Rebecca clenched her fists at her sides. Nathan took a slow breath to control his anger. Daniel kept his face calm even though the words cut deep. The deliberation lasted 3 days. The human representatives waited in their quarters on the station, hoping and praying that the ancient species would see their worth. Reports came in slowly, and each one was worse than the last. The Vorath thought humans were too primitive. The Shantari found them energetically incompatible. The Mordath, giant insect-like beings who communicated through smells, declared humans offensive to their senses. On the 4th day, they were called back to the chamber. Daniel knew from the cold expressions on the alien faces that the news would not be good. High Arbiter Kelthan delivered the verdict without emotion. "The Galactic Concord has reached its decision. Humanity is denied membership. Furthermore, your species is confined to the Sol system and a radius of 50 light-years from your home star. Any vessel found beyond this boundary will be destroyed without warning. Any attempt to build colonies outside your zone will be met with total destruction." Daniel felt like he had been punched in the chest. "This is unjust. We have done nothing wrong. We have committed no crimes against any species." "Your existence is the crime," Kelthan replied. "You breed too fast. You consume too much. You adapt too quickly. We have seen species like yours before. If left alone, you would spread across the galaxy like a disease. The Concord will not allow another such plague to rise." The Mordath representative released a cloud of smells that Rebecca's translator turned into words. "Be grateful we do not kill you all now while it would still be easy." As the human group was led out of the chamber, Nathan leaned close to Daniel. "What do we do now, sir?" Daniel looked back at the towering aliens, at the casual dismissal in their inhuman eyes. They did not see humans as threats. They saw them as pests to be controlled. "We go home," Daniel said quietly. "And we remember every single word they said." The news of the exile hit Earth like a bomb. People filled the streets in anger. Politicians shouted for war. Military leaders demanded that humanity fight back. Religious leaders called for acceptance of their fate. The world was divided and confused and scared. In a secure bunker beneath the mountains, the leaders of humanity's united government gathered to decide what to do next. President Laura Mitchell sat at the head of the table. She had grown up poor and fought her way to the top through sheer will and intelligence. Now the fate of her entire species rested on her shoulders. General Patrick Coleman wanted to fight. They think we are weak. We should build the biggest fleet in history and show them what humans can do. Dr. Kevin Walsh, the head of all scientific research, disagreed. We cannot fight them. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. If we attack, they will destroy us completely. We need time to catch up. Admiral Cole, freshly returned from his humiliation, stayed silent until the president called on him directly. Daniel, you stood in front of them. You looked into their eyes. What did you see? He thought carefully before answering. I saw arrogance. The kind that comes from never being challenged. They have ruled the galaxy for so long that they cannot imagine anyone threatening them. They put us in a cage and expect us to accept it quietly. Should we accept it? Laura asked. Daniel shook his head slowly. Every cage has weak points. Every empire has blind spots. They gave us 50 light years to live in. That is not nothing. There are resources in that space. There are planets and moons and asteroids. Let us use every single inch of what they gave us. Let us build something in our exile that they could never dream of. President Mitchell looked around the table at her advisors. Some looked doubtful, others looked hopeful. All of them looked to her for the final decision. Then that is exactly what we will do, she said. They cast us out because they thought we were nothing. We will prove them wrong. Not through war, not through rage, through building something greater than anything they have ever seen. And so humanity began its long journey in the darkness, cast out by the galaxy, confined to a tiny corner of space, written off as nothing more than pests. But in the hearts of 8 billion people, a fire had been lit. It was a fire of determination and defiance. It would burn for centuries. And one day, it would light up the entire galaxy. The first 100 years of exile were the hardest that humanity had ever faced. The anger and shame of being rejected by the galaxy burned in the hearts of every human being. But instead of letting that pain destroy them, they turned it into fuel. Every insult they had received became a reason to work harder. Every dismissive laugh from the alien council became motivation to prove them wrong. Dr. Amanda Clark became the most important person in humanity's transformation. She was a physicist who had dreamed of studying at the great universities of the Concord species. That dream had been stolen from her when humanity was cast out. So instead of learning from the aliens, she decided to surpass them. She built her own university on Mars and called it the Clark Institute. It became the birthplace of technologies that the galaxy thought impossible for such a young species. They believe we are limited by our short lives, Amanda told her first class of students. They think that because we only live for 100 years, we cannot think about the future. They are wrong. We will show them what humans can do when they set their minds to something. Her first great achievement was the longevity treatment. It was not true immortality, but it could extend a healthy human life to 300 years or more. The first generation to receive this gift dedicated their extended years to a single purpose. They would catch up to the galaxy no matter how long it took. Admiral Daniel Cole, now over 200 years old but still sharp and determined, took charge of transforming humanity's military forces. He recruited a young tactical genius named Ryan Carter from the asteroid belt colonies. Ryan had grown up in the harsh environment of space and understood things that people from Earth could never fully grasp. Together, they redesigned how humans would fight. We will never match them ship for ship, Ryan explained to the military leaders. Their vessels are bigger and stronger and more advanced. So we must fight in ways they do not expect. Smaller ships that can move faster. Weapons they have never seen because they never bothered to develop them. Tactics that make no sense to their ancient minds. Humanity had always been good at one thing above all else. They were good at making weapons. Now, free from any restrictions and driven by the need to survive, human engineers pushed the limits of what was possible. Dr. Samantha Ellis invented the collapse field generator. It could create pockets of intense gravity strong enough to crush enemy ships like empty cans. Lieutenant Commander Gary Palmer developed swarm tactics using thousands of tiny fighters controlled by a single human mind. Professor Henry Morton created shields that did not just block enemy fire but sent it right back at the attacker. Every new invention was born from necessity. Every breakthrough was powered by the memory of being told they were worthless. By the year 3150, the tiny corner of space that humanity had been confined to had changed completely. Where once there had been only Earth with a few small outposts scattered around, there now existed a civilization that used every piece of rock and ice and gas within their borders. Mars had been transformed into a green and living world with oceans and forests and cities. Venus had been cooled down and settled by millions of people. The moons of Jupiter and Saturn held populations in the hundreds of millions. The asteroid belt had been reorganized into a massive industrial complex. Factories there produced ships and weapons and technologies at a speed the Concorde could never have imagined. And at the very edge of their permitted space, humanity built something they called the Line. The Line was not a single structure. It was a network of thousands of fortress stations, weapons platforms, and sensor arrays. It stretched along the entire boundary of human space, like a wall of steel and fire. It was humanity's message to the galaxy. It said that they would never be caught off guard. It said that anyone who tried to attack them would pay a terrible price. Admiral Ryan Carter, now centuries old himself and serving as the supreme commander of all human defense forces, stood on the bridge of his flagship. The ship was called Resilience, and it was the most powerful vessel humanity had ever built. He looked out at the stars beyond the Line and thought about how far they had come. His second-in-command, Captain Nicole Warren, walked up beside him. She was young compared to him, only about 150 years old. But she was one of the best officers in the fleet. "The Concorde has sent another inspection fleet," she reported. 12 ships. They will arrive at Checkpoint 7 in 6 hours. Ryan nodded slowly. The Concorde sent such fleets every few decades. It was their way of reminding humanity of their place. The inspectors would scan human defenses and take notes, and then go home feeling confident in their superiority. "Let them look," Ryan said calmly. "They will see exactly what we want them to see." This was perhaps humanity's greatest trick. They had learned the value of appearing weak while growing strong. The defensive stations that the Concorde sensors could detect were impressive, but not impossibly so. The technology on display was advanced, but within the range of what the aliens expected from humans. What the sensors could not see was a different story. Hidden facilities had been built beneath airless moons. Shipyards were concealed in the permanent shadows of objects at the very edge of the solar system. Weapons laboratories existed in dimensions that the Concorde did not even know about. Dr. Amanda Clark had made another discovery during her research. She found that the universe had more dimensions than anyone in the galaxy had ever explored. The ancient species of the Concorde had mastered normal physics over thousands of years, but they had grown lazy. They had stopped looking for new things. They thought they already knew everything there was to know. Humanity had kept looking, and humanity had found secrets that changed everything. In hidden spaces that existed alongside normal reality, human scientists built technologies that broke every rule the Concorde thought was absolute. They learned to travel through these other dimensions, appearing and disappearing in ways that seemed like magic. They learned to store entire fleets in pocket universes, ready to emerge at a moment's notice. They learned things that would have made the ancient species scream in terror if they had known. But the Conquered did not know. They looked at humanity and saw a confined species, trapped in their little cage, making slow progress toward a future that would never threaten anyone. They saw exactly what humanity wanted them to see. In the Clark Institute on Mars, Dr. Amanda Clark celebrated her 500th birthday. She looked out the window at the red deserts and the new cities and the ships flying overhead. She thought about the young woman she had been when the Concorde rejected humanity. She thought about all the years she had spent working toward this moment. "We are almost ready," she said to herself. "Almost ready to show them what we have become." And somewhere out in the darkness between dimensions, the hidden fleets of humanity waited for the signal that would change the galaxy forever. The year was 3347, when the Galactic Concord finally realized that something was very wrong. It started with whispers among the trading species that operated in the empty spaces between civilizations. Ships were vanishing near the borders of human space. They were not being destroyed. They were simply gone. No wreckage, no distress calls, nothing. The Mordith were the first to investigate. They sent a fleet of 17 warships to search for answers. The ships crossed into the region near human space and were never seen again. Not a single message came back. It was as if the fleet had sailed off the edge of the universe. High Arbiter Kelthan, still alive after all these centuries, because his species lived for thousands of years, called an emergency meeting of the Concord, the great chamber on Thessara Prime filled with the representatives of the 12 ruling species. The mood was tense and angry. The humans have developed forbidden weapons, the Shintari representative accused. They have broken the terms of their confinement. They must be punished. We have no proof of that, said the Velthan delegate. The Velthan were one of the few species that had argued against punishing humanity 500 years ago. There could be other explanations for the disappearances. What other explanation? Kelthan demanded. His stone voice echoed through the chamber. 17 warships do not simply vanish into nothing. The humans are responsible. I am certain of it. Before anyone could respond, every screen in the chamber flickered and changed. A human face appeared on all of them at once. It was Admiral Ryan Carter, Supreme Commander of humanity's defense forces. His expression was calm and confident. He did not look like a man who was afraid of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Distinguished members of the Galactic Concord, Ryan said. 500 years ago, you cast humanity out of the galactic community. You confined us to a small corner of space and expected us to accept our fate quietly. You expected us to stay weak and obedient forever. You were wrong. The Concord members stirred with anger, but Ryan continued speaking before anyone could interrupt. Your ships entered our space without permission. They were given warnings to leave. They ignored those warnings. So we removed them. The crews are alive and being treated well. They will be returned to you when we are ready. This is not a declaration of war. It is a statement of fact. The exile you forced upon us is over. From this day forward, humanity will go wherever we choose. We will build wherever we want. We will not attack you unless you attack us first. But we will never accept your restrictions again. The transmission ended. Silence filled the chamber for a long moment. How dare they? The Mordith representative hissed through a cloud of angry scents. How dare these insects threaten us? High Arbiter Kelthan rose to his full height. His stone body seemed to glow with fury. Assemble the fleet. The largest fleet in 3,000 years. We will crush these humans and remind the galaxy what happens to those who defy the Concord. The punitive fleet came together over the next few months. 800 warships from 6 different species gathered at the edge of human space. It was the most powerful military force that had been assembled in living memory. The ships were massive and ancient, covered in weapons that had destroyed countless civilizations throughout history. Fleet Admiral Kelthan Prime commanded the armada from his dreadnought. The Eternal Judgment. He was the High Arbiter's own offspring, raised from birth to be a warrior. He had never lost a battle. He did not plan to start now. Human forces are gathering along their defensive line, his tactical officer reported. We count approximately 200 vessels. They are smaller than ours on average. Kelthan Prime studied the enemy positions with calm confidence. They are outnumbered 4-1. This will be a slaughter. Order the fleet to advance. We will end this rebellion quickly. The battle began exactly as the Concord expected. Human ships rushed forward to meet the attackers. They fought with energy weapons and missiles and kinetic projectiles. They were skilled and brave, but they were clearly outmatched. The Concord fleet pushed through their defenses like a knife through soft flesh. Human ships exploded. Defensive stations were reduced to rubble. Kelthan Prime allowed himself a small smile. This is what happens when children challenge their betters. Then the trap was sprung. Across the entire battlefield, Space itself seemed to tear open. Rifts appeared in the fabric of reality, glowing with colors that no one had ever seen before. From these rifts emerged ships, thousands of them, human vessels of designs that the Concorde had never seen before. They came from directions that should have been impossible. They came from above and below the plane of battle. They came from behind the Concorde fleet. They came from everywhere at once. "Where are they coming from?" Kelthan Prime shouted. His tactical officer's voice was shaking with fear. "Unknown. The rifts do not match any known type of faster-than-light travel. It is as if they are arriving from somewhere outside normal space entirely." The human fleet struck like a storm of fire and steel. Weapons that should not have existed cut through Concorde shields like they were made of paper. Fighters that seemed to exist in multiple places at the same time overwhelmed the point defense systems. Ships that the Concorde destroyed reappeared moments later, completely undamaged, as if time itself was on the side of the humans. Admiral Ryan Carter commanded the battle from his flagship. His voice was calm as he issued orders through the dimensional communication network. "All wings, continue the encirclement. Leave them no escape route. I want this finished before they can regroup." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the great punitive fleet of the Galactic Concorde had been completely destroyed. 763 vessels were nothing but debris floating in space. The rest had surrendered. Kelthan Prime was captured alive and brought aboard the Resilience. He stood before Admiral Carter in a holding cell that was clean and comfortable. Even in defeat, he could not understand what had happened. "You could not have developed this technology in 500 years, he said. "It is impossible. No species in the history of the galaxy has ever advanced this fast." Ryan looked at him with something that might have been pity. "You are thinking in straight lines. The dimensions we discovered do not work the way normal space does. Time moves differently there. We have had much longer than 500 years to prepare. From our perspective, it has been thousands of years. Tens of thousands." Kelthan Prime felt the weight of those words crush down on him. "What are you going to do now? Destroy the Concorde? Take revenge for your exile?" "No," Ryan said simply. "We are going to do something much more frightening to beings like you. We are going to offer the galaxy a choice. They can join us in building something new, or they can cling to the old ways and be left behind. But we will not destroy anyone who does not try to destroy us first. We remember what it feels like to be treated as worthless. We will not do that to others." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "You cast us out because you thought we were nothing. You were wrong. And now the entire galaxy is going to learn just how wrong you were." News of the battle spread across the stars like wildfire. The impossible had happened. The ancient Concorde had been defeated by the species they had dismissed as insects. Everything was about to change. The destruction of the Concorde fleet sent shockwaves through every corner of the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, a young species had defeated the combined might of the ancient rulers in open battle. The news spread from star to star, from planet to planet, until every being in the Milky Way knew what had happened. The Galactic Concorde fell apart almost immediately. Emergency meetings were held, but all they produced was blame and accusations. The Shantari withdrew their support from the Alliance, calculating that their energy bodies made them poor targets for human weapons. The Mordath sealed their borders and began fortifying every planet they controlled. The other species scattered like leaves in a storm, each one trying to figure out how to survive in this new and terrifying galaxy. And while they argued and panicked, humanity moved forward. Admiral Ryan Carter led the expansion personally, though by now he had delegated most of the daily work to younger commanders. Admiral Nicole Warren, who had served as his second-in-command for over a century, took charge of the first expeditionary fleet. Her orders were simple: go out into the galaxy and claim humanity's place among the stars. Set course for the Thesara system. Nicole ordered from the bridge of her flagship, "It is time we return to the place where this all began." Her fleet emerged from dimensional travel directly above Thesara Prime, the same world where humanity had been condemned to exile 5 centuries before. The local defense force, a small group of Concorde peacekeeping ships, immediately demanded that the humans leave. Nicole responded with 6 words. "We are not asking for permission. There was no battle." The peacekeeping force had seen the reports from the Great Defeat. They knew what human weapons could do. They chose wisdom over courage and retreated to the edge of the system to watch from a safe distance. Nicole led the landing party down to the surface herself. She walked through the same crystal corridors that Admiral Daniel Cole had walked centuries ago. The colors in the walls shifted nervously, sensing the change in power that had come to this place. The chamber where humanity had been judged was empty. The great seats of the 12 Concord representatives stood abandoned. Nicole stood in the exact spot where Daniel had stood when he was told that humans were nothing but insects to be confined. "Record this for the official history," she told her aide, a young officer named Christopher Lane. "This location is claimed by the human collective. It will serve as our embassy to the galaxy. Any species that wishes to speak with us may do so here." Christopher looked around the empty chamber. "Do you think they will come?" Nicole smiled. "Not at first. Their pride will not allow it. But eventually, they will have no choice. We have something they need. We have the future." The expansion continued for the next 200 years. Humanity did not conquer in the traditional sense. They did not need to. Their dimensional technology gave them access to resources that the Concord species could not reach. Their weapons made direct attacks against them suicide. Their population, freed from the limits of confined space, grew larger with every passing decade. Instead of conquest, humanity offered choices. Dr. Amanda Clark, still alive and brilliant after 7 centuries of life, created something called the Exchange Protocol. Any species that wanted to trade with humanity could do so through neutral stations positioned throughout the galaxy. Technology, resources, knowledge, culture. Everything was available for fair exchange. No tricks, no traps, just honest dealing between equals. Many of the younger species jumped at the chance. These were civilizations that had been pushed around by the conquered for thousands of years. They had been told what to do, and where to go, and how to think. Now, for the first time, someone was offering them real partnership. The Velthan were among the first to establish formal relations with humanity. Their ambassador, a being called Velthan Tertius, met with Amanda Clark on one of the new exchange stations. "I do not understand," Tertius said. "You have the power to dominate everyone. You could take whatever you want by force. Why do you not do this?" Amanda thought about the question for a moment. She had asked herself the same thing many times over the centuries. "Because we remember what it felt like to be cast out," she finally said. "We remember being told we were worthless. We remember being treated like nothing. We will not do to others what was done to us." That seems very noble for a species that just destroyed the galactic order. Amanda laughed softly. "Do not mistake kindness for weakness. We destroyed the Concord fleet because they tried to destroy us. We will do the same to anyone who makes that mistake, but we would rather build than destroy. There is more satisfaction in creating something good than in tearing something down." But not everyone accepted humanity's rise peacefully. The Vorath, in particular, could not accept what had happened. High Arbiter Kelthan had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. He could not believe that a species he had dismissed as insects had risen to challenge everything he had built. In secret, Kelthan gathered the remaining loyalists of the old Concord. He told them about a weapon that had been sealed away for 20,000 years, a weapon so terrible that it had been forbidden even to speak of it. The Void Singers. These were not ships. They were entities. Artificial minds, designed to exist partially outside of normal reality. They had the power to destabilize the dimensional barriers that humanity had learned to use. Releasing them might damage the fabric of space itself. But Kelthan no longer cared about consequences. "If we cannot have the galaxy," he declared to his followers, "then neither shall the humans." The Void Singers were released at 17 points across the galaxy simultaneously. They targeted the dimensional pathways that humanity relied upon for travel and communication. For a terrible moment, it seemed like the plan might work. Human ships were thrown out of transit. Communications went dark. The network that connected human civilization began to tear apart. Then something unexpected happened. From the deepest parts of dimensional space, something responded. Humanity had not simply explored those other dimensions. They had seeded them with monitoring systems. They had placed networks of linked human minds there, consciousnesses that had chosen to exist beyond physical form. Admiral Daniel Cole, who had never truly died but had transferred his awareness into the dimensional network centuries ago, spoke directly into Kelthan's mind. "Did you think we would not prepare for this?" Daniel's voice echoed through dimensions. "Did you think we would leave ourselves open to the very technologies we created?" The Void Singers were contained. The human networks absorbed them, redirecting their destructive energy into power that would fuel human expansion for centuries to come. Kelthan was captured and brought before a tribunal. Representatives from dozens of species watched as judgment was passed. His sentence was not death. Humanity had moved beyond such simple punishments. Instead, he was exiled, confined forever to a single world at the edge of the galaxy, cut off from everything that made civilization possible. The irony was not lost on anyone. The being who had cast humanity out was now cast out himself. As the guards led him away, Kelthan looked back at the humans who had judged him. He finally understood. He had made the worst mistake that any ruler could make. He had created an enemy and then given that enemy the motivation and the time to become unstoppable. The galaxy would never be the same again. By the year 4500, the galaxy had changed beyond anything the ancient Concord could have imagined. The old order was gone, remembered only in history books and museum displays. In its place stood something called the Stellar Commonwealth. It was a federation of over 300 species bound together not by force or fear but by choice and mutual benefit. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had done something far more impressive. They had made themselves essential to it. Human technology powered the transit networks that connected every inhabited world. Without human dimensional science, travel between stars would take years instead of hours. Human diplomats mediated disputes that had been festering for thousands of years. Conflicts that seemed impossible to solve were resolved through patience and creativity. Human scientists worked alongside researchers from every species, pushing the boundaries of knowledge in directions the old Concord had never considered. And humanity itself had transformed along with the galaxy they helped rebuild. Admiral Daniel Cole now existed as something more than human but still deeply connected to his origins. His consciousness spread across 17-dimensional planes, thinking thoughts that would have been impossible for any merely physical mind. He was more idea than flesh now, more pattern than matter, but when he chose to appear to others, he still looked like the young officer who had stood before the Concord centuries ago. Dr. Amanda Clark had chosen a different path. She remained physical, though her body had been rebuilt and repaired countless times over the long centuries. She preferred the weight of a real form. She liked being able to touch things and taste food and feel the wind on her face. Some experiences, she believed, were only meaningful when you had a body to feel them with. The two old friends met one last time in the Crystal Chamber on Thesara Prime. The building had been restored and turned into a museum commemorating the founding of the Commonwealth. Visitors from hundreds of worlds came every day to stand where the great transformation of the galaxy had begun. Daniel appeared as a shape of gentle light, his form flickering slightly as he moved between dimensions. Amanda walked with a cane now, though she did not really need one. She just liked the feeling of it. 1700 years since we stood before the Concord, Daniel said. His voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Do you remember what I said when they cast us out? Amanda nodded slowly. Her memory, enhanced by centuries of modification, was still perfectly clear. You said we would go home and remember. And we did remember. Every insult, every dismissal, every moment of being told we were worthless. We remembered, Daniel agreed. We built, and now here we are, standing in the place where they tried to break us. Amanda looked around the chamber. The crystal walls still shifted colors, but now they reflected the presence of thousands of species, instead of just 12. The seats where the ancient rulers had sat were preserved behind glass, monuments to an era that would never return. Was it worth it? she asked. All the centuries of work? All the conflict and struggle? Daniel considered the question carefully. Through his expanded senses, he could feel the pulse of civilization across 100,000 worlds. He could sense human ships traveling through dimensional pathways. He could hear human teachers in universities on planets that the Concord had never even visited. He could feel the joy of human children playing under alien suns. I believe so, he said finally, though perhaps not for the reasons I originally thought. What do you mean? When they cast us out, all I wanted was revenge. I wanted to prove them wrong. I wanted to show them that we were not the primitive species they believed us to be. I spent centuries building weapons and defenses, planning for the day when we would strike back and make them pay for every cruel word. He paused, gathering thoughts that stretched across multiple dimensions. But somewhere along the way, the purpose changed. We stopped building to defeat them. We started building to become something better. Not better than them. Better than what we ourselves had been. Better than what anyone expected us to be. The revenge stopped mattering. The building started mattering more. Amanda smiled, and it was the same warm expression she had worn as a young scientist 700 years ago. Perhaps that is the real victory. Not that we defeated them, but that we grew beyond the need for revenge. Perhaps, Daniel agreed. In the archives of the Stellar Commonwealth, preserved for all future generations, there was a document titled The Promise of the Exiled. It had been written by Daniel Cole in the days immediately after humanity was cast out. It had been a private journal entry, never meant for anyone else to read. But centuries later it was discovered and recognized for what it truly was. A prophecy of everything that humanity would become. The document read as follows. They have told us we are nothing. They have locked us in a cage and expected us to die there. They are wrong. Not because we are special or chosen or destined for greatness, but because we have something they lost long ago. We have hunger. We have the desperate need to grow and change and become more than we are. They have ruled the stars for so long that they have forgotten what it means to strive. They have achieved so much that they have forgotten how to dream of achieving more. We have nothing but our hunger, our determination, our absolute refusal to accept the limits that others place on us. They believe this makes us weak. They are wrong. It makes us dangerous, and one day, when we have built something beyond anything they could imagine, they will finally understand. We were never the species they should have feared. We were the species they should have welcomed. Their mistake will become the foundation of our triumph. These words were taught in schools across the Commonwealth, not as a celebration of victory over the old conquered, but as a reminder of what humanity had overcome to reach the stars. Every child learned them. Every species that joined the Commonwealth understood them. They were not just words about humanity. They were words about the power of being underestimated. Today, human vessels travel paths between dimensions that the ancient species could not comprehend. Human teachers guide young minds from 100 different worlds. Human engineers build structures that span entire star systems. Human diplomats maintain peace across distances that would have seemed impossible to the founders of the old conquered. And somewhere in the dimensional networks that connect all of human civilization, Admiral Daniel Cole still watches over everything. Patient. Vigilant. Proud of what his species has become, they cast us out expecting us to wither away. Instead, we flourished. They condemned us expecting us to burn with rage. Instead, we built. They feared us expecting us to destroy. Instead, we created. We are humanity. We were forged in exile. We were tempered by rejection. We were shaped by centuries of struggle against those who wished us gone. We do not forget the lessons of our past, but we no longer live there. The galaxy is our home now. Not because we conquered it with weapons, because we earned it through wisdom and patience and the refusal to become what our enemies expected. And we are only getting started.